Each of us faces some sort of dilemma or choice, a forking path of possibilities. It's the thing that lives rent-free in your mind. Whatever that one thing is when I say that, that one thing that comes to mind most immediately. And we do change what that concern is, but at least for me, as a sort of recovering perfectionist, there's always something. Remember Rosanna Dana from Saturday Night Live? It's always something. And it plays on our innate fear and our despair. Should I call attention to some big problem that everyone is ignoring? Should I name and confront bad behaviors that are making things toxic where I work or where I live? Do I ask for a raise or promotion, or can I get some kind of affirmation for this energy that I'm putting out? Should I have that conversation with my spouse or my partner that I have almost blurted out 100 times now? But if I don't say anything, that situation will start to spiral out of control. What will happen if I say the hard thing to my parent or my kid about that one thing that keeps bothering me? Would that help things, or would that make them worse? Shouldn't I make a doctor's appointment to have something checked? Why do I keep putting that off? Do I need to find a support group or a therapist or talk to someone? It could be anything. Anything that we judge important. Anything for which the stakes and the consequences are real and significant. Anything the mind seizes on. Anything that makes us dismayed or discombobulated. In work, love, family, money, health, there's almost always some form of a nagging question in our lives. Even on the quietest nights, when we're awoken by some small noise and lay there still, trying to will ourselves back to sleep, trying not to think of anything in particular, that's when it's the worst for me. Because something floats up out of the muck of our minds, and we begin to feel the need to entertain it. We recall the urgency, the souring in the stomach, and the pressure of that nagging decision that is in front of us. And yet, for all that worry, we usually already know the right answer. And we despair because we know that if we do the right thing, it may mean tough times ahead. The potential for a loss of relationship or work or money or social status. And I think Peter is just a beautiful stand-in for this dynamic in our lives. When he's in the boat and Jesus appears, let me quickly show you. For one thing, the sea is tossed. There's a storm, it's chaotic, it's windy, it feels that there is no sure or firm place to stand. It's all moving beneath them. Number two, it is late. They're on the fourth watch. That's what the King James says. They're on the fourth watch, which was from 3 to 6 a.m. And they had been at that rowing against that headwind all night. Everyone in the boat is exhausted and disoriented. 3, they're so discombobulated they can't trust themselves to believe their own eyes. There's no precedent for this in their minds. There's no precedent for why Jesus should come to them, walking to them on the water like this. So they make up a story. They tell themselves that it's a spirit, which, makes things worse. Rather than see their friend coming to help them, they imagine something that only further shocks and dismays them. So Jesus' first intervention is to walk out to them on the sea. And his second is to reach out to them and assure them that that is him. Be of good cheer. It is I. Be not afraid. I suspect that Peter is maybe less doubtful than he is tired and out of sorts. He needs something that he can rest in. But also remember that in the Gospels, Peter comes across as a little impulsive from time to time. He likes to up the ante on just about everything. He likes to double down when there's drama. In John, when Jesus offers to wash Peter's feet, Peter asks, hey, not just that, but how about my hands and my face as well? He's so well-meaning, but so impulsive, double or nothing. And so in this moment, he invents a test to clarify in his mind who he's dealing with. Jesus, if it's really you, have me come out to you. Jesus assents. Peter gets out of the boat to go to him. The gospel writer uses a beautiful verb to describe what's going on in Peter's head. He says that once Peter comprehends the force of the wind, he begins to think. He'd like to continue and go on to Jesus, but he'd also like to get back in the boat. That's the human story writ large. Although the path has been already established and sanctioned by Jesus, nevertheless, it is a watery and dangerous path, and one that inspires thoughts of turning back. To Peter, safety lies behind. When the people of God follow God, despite the advantage it affords them, still there is usually a moment of great hesitation. They become divided. They get grouchy. They are given to their base desires. It seems there's always a belief that whatever is behind them in time is better than whatever could be in front of them, because they know what that old life was. Even if it wasn't good, they know what it was. And that's at least something concrete that they can grip onto. When times get hard for the people of Israel fleeing Egypt, they look back a little too fondly on the past. We miss the fresh fish, they say. The things we ate back there for nothing, the bread, the meat, the leeks and the onions and the melons. Out of their hunger, they forget the most important part of that story, which is that back there, they were enslaved, whereas here, they are not. And the whole point of the exercise is to occupy their own land where they can be free. And an awful lot depends on their not going back. But when the stress is on, it's easy to forget how far we've come. It's easier to turn heel than it is to forge ahead. It's easier to believe that Jesus is not who he says he is, no matter how many times he's proven faithful to us. It's understandable that we should think this way. But it's not until we fear that we start to sink. And so we have yet one more instance of Jesus telling us, do not be afraid. If that phrase seems familiar, it should. It occurs 365 times in the Bible. That's a nice number for us. We can think of it as daily assurance. Do not be afraid. And no, Peter is not overwhelmed by the water. Jesus is there, supporting him, asking him the very apt question of where his conviction has gone. Compelling, too, that the wind keeps howling until the two of them are safely back in the boat. And then what remains? A pause in the quiet as the wind stops. Astonishment, gratitude, worship, and always the return to that sense of surprise and thanksgiving, adoration for what God has done. Jesus converts fear to faith. He stills the unruly wave, but this is not long ago and far away. This is now. And when we doubt, when we sink, he is present to save and to calm. God is for life, and life abundant. Don't be afraid. Amen.